guys. I am joined here with John Perles. And John, I was thinking before we got on this call, because you and I met, it's probably been a few years now, 3-4 years maybe. But I remember, and I don't remember 100% how I got to you, but I remember a few years ago I had this invention idea, and I went to a guy in Effingham. And is that how I met you? Was it through Jim Beam, through your wife, and then you?
I think so. I think that's where we started. You had the entrepreneur guy, and I work with the local CEO program. And so Jim called me, and we met, and then I just asked you some other questions, and you started just sharing kind of where you're at, what you want for the future, and stuff like that relative to your career. And I think that's where it started.
That's exactly where it started. That's interesting because, too, that was before kind of the whole, I call it the transformation of myself, because at that point I was still just trying to figure out what I wanted in life. And at that point I was talking about getting a coach, and you were just starting, I think it was like a 12-week course type deal with a bunch of local guys. And I was looking for more something one-on-one. So I went a different direction, but yet we still stayed in contact. And I've appreciated that so much because, after that all went down, and then we went to, or I met you at your house one time. We just had a beer out on the lake, and and you also gave me this book. Like, this John Perles is an author. He wrote this book, Your Life is Your Business, Building a Life of Momentum. And so I didn't think about John until probably and I think about John a lot, but I thought structure you, and I was like, this book relates to everything that we talk about in here, having routines and structure in your life. And then I was like, I need to get John on here because we don't talk a lot. But how did you, John, tell us a little bit about your backstory. How did you get involved in some of this stuff, and why did you end up writing this book?
Well, I kind of like you was looking around for different things. Never was so great at working for somebody else. Was more into working for myself. I mean, I did okay when I worked for other people, but I just lost interest fairly quickly. So kind of started a couple of different businesses, built them up, built one up for about 15, 16 years in Arizona, and then sold it and moved to, of all places, Effingham, Illinois, to be on a lake back in the Midwest, more my roots, my wife's roots. Got involved, which we agreed to do when we moved to a small town, got involved in small town activities, CASA, CEFS, this high school CEO program. And kind of one thing led to another. I was helping out with the CEO program one day, and some gentleman that owns several businesses came up to me and said, "Hey, I like some of the way you think and the things you talk about. Would you look at some of my businesses? I think I could use a fresh pair of eyes," which was kind of perfect. So that's really how that started. Relative to kind of the coaching, the one-on-one, to some degree, I was a professional golfer, and I gave a lot of golf lessons. And anything in sport or any lessons of any sort, it always boils back down to the person. So I think that's probably where it started, if I really looked for the beginning core, that type of thing. But then it moved more into, and I don't even know if I like the word, coaching or consulting or whatever, but it's some combination of those types of things. It's really working with people that are interested in their own growth. And I don't know that there's a word for that, but that's what's interesting to me. And that's where I think I can be helpful. And if I can't, they can kick me to the curb easy enough. The way the book came about is my daughter was bugging me saying, you need something a little bit more substantial, as a bit of a calling card, if you will, to get recognized, that kind of thing. So, right, John Perles writing a book isn't even in the realm of possibility. So I want to clarify one thing. Yeah, my name's on it. I did write, I would say most of it. Amy Guy and I wrote all of it. But the people that helped, I mean, there's 6, 7, 8 people that helped along the way. Huge. It was a great project because of all people, my mother did the editing, which was phenomenal.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
Came at a very special time because my father had just passed away. So it was a time for my mom and I to spend time together and do that type of thing together, which was just phenomenal. And she did, I think, just a great job. And so to me, it was a success before the final print. And we just printed them, used them as calling cards, that kind of stuff. I'm sure I could still dust some off from the corner, but that's about what I've got.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you talked about being a professional golfer. And a question I have is, do you think that sports has played a major role in your life as far as you having that competitive spirit and being an entrepreneur? Do you think that stuff has all kind of played hand in hand with each other at all?
It's such a great question. Absolutely. I don't know where I would have gotten the structure, and I know that's your gig. I don't know where I would have gotten the structure. I think that's the single most important thing that I'm aware of that that sports can give you. What I've learned in life afterwards is really all occupations or almost all endeavors take structure. They're just not as obvious, I think, in many cases. Just one quick, if I could, Mike. I actually took an art class about 5, 6 years ago. And again, that's something I'm not going to do, but it was a group of people. And it's one of those wine and art type of things. And right away, the first 5 minutes, I was completely captured because I'm thinking of all my life, you hear about artists and they're freelance and they're going to do whatever they want and don't draw within the lines and they just kind of go off. All the class was about was structure and how to start, where to move and how to look at this. And I was blown away. I just was so excited to see that in fact, the best of the artists, there's a structure that we might not be able to follow, but they've all got a structure. I just think structure sets us up for everything. And the more we can understand it, the better, because it's not always obvious.
Yeah. And that's awesome that you say that. I just read recently too, how, we get so complacent for the most part, but whenever you're like taking an art class, it's something that's not, it's not in your realm, and it's something that's different. You're always challenging your brain for different things. What was it the other day? I was thinking that, I was thinking my daughter's going to start playing a piano. I'm like, why don't I take piano lessons? I don't know how to play a piano. That'd be a great challenge at 37 years old to learn how to do something like that. But, talking about the sports too, and so I've got 3 young kids, and my oldest, I'm not sure if they want to play sports, great. But I'm also kind of now, I'm like, I want my kids to learn entrepreneurship more so. I feel like kids have that desire to be a professional athlete. I'm going to do this. How many kids are professional athletes? Not a lot, but also I know in my own personal life that sports brought on so much. Like, I learned so much about myself. I was able to build so many different relationships that even now in my life, like, I still have these relationships from playing bitty basketball to YMCA at 5 years old with different guys. And I can still, when we see each other, we still know each other from those things. I'm like, that's just crazy how that stuff works.
I think the sports is fantastic. I don't think if you want somebody, your kid, to be to be exposed to business and that type of thing. I think the well-rounded, the balance piece is the way to go, with sports, with art, with reading, with the rounded. I mean, how else are kids going to find themselves and understand themselves if they're not getting exposed to all of that? Yeah, and I see it all the time. Some of it's pretty close to me as far as wanting to be a professional this or a professional that. Okay, I mean, we should do the best we can and whatever we do. And if it ends up kind of leading in a place and our interest and our passion's really there, and we want to set that as a goal, which is really important to set goals. But I also think you want to break goals down. And I think we want to be fair to ourselves as well. And that's a tough line. You don't ever want to tell somebody they can't accomplish something, but by the same token, we're not going to go to the moon tomorrow. I don't tell high school kids these days that they'll never go to the moon, because if they want to, they probably will. But I think, that's where it's up to us to determine what's kind of a fair goal, if you will, and what's just going to be aggravating. And whether you get the goal or not, as you would agree, Mike, that's important that we have something specific to go after. But it's the learning, the path along the way, all the skills we learn along the way, and in the ways that we can tack along the way too. If we say, hey, this is cool and I've enjoyed this, but boy, I don't want A, I want B, and then we head over there. That's okay too. It is absolutely fine to change goals. I wouldn't suggest to do it every day. That would tell you that you might need to work on your goal setting.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think it's something that people get locked into and get afraid of. Well, I don't want to commit to that for 10 years. Well, I'm not going to commit to anything for 10 years unless it's continuing to, other than my marriage, I guess I should say it, for my children and things like that. But even those, those relationships change, and you can have different desires and goals within those.
Oh, yes. You make some great points right there. And, first I want to start when you say, yes, it's important to set goals. We understand that. But like you said, breaking the goals down, and also, you can change the goals along the way. It's not a big deal. But also, like you said, who you become and what you're learning along the way, because there's times where where I set that goal a while back. If I was going to run a marathon in this certain time, and I was so focused on that goal that I did not enjoy the process whatsoever. I hit the goal and then I'm like, well, now what? Now what do I do? And I had to step back and be like, okay, you didn't enjoy any of that process. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But now as I'm getting older, I understand like when I set these goals, there's going to be a lot of growth in my own personal self and then, in my other relationships too, that are going to form and happen during this time. I'll use an example of CrossFit. My wife and I watched a documentary on CrossFit. This was been over a year ago. And she's like, I want to go do that. And instantly, and oh man, this is kind of a vulnerable thing to say, but I was instantly like, I don't want my wife to go there. She's like really good looking, cute. What if she finds another guy who's more attractive and stronger and better than me, and she leaves me for this guy? And I was
Wow.
in a state at that point where I wasn't even happy with myself at that point. So I did a lot of self-reflection, and I was like, there was a point in my life where I was almost strangling my marriage because I was just so scared of what was going to come. But now we go to this gym, and I mean, it's completely changed my life, John. It's like the relationships that I have there, John, the fitness level I'm at now, like it's just crazy that I would even have those thoughts back then. You know what I mean? It's wild, but the growth from doing that has changed immensely, and I'm a lot better person for going through that. It was hard at first, it just seems dumb to even say that out loud. I've never told
Well,
anybody that.
well, my guess is that's why your podcast is getting more and more successful because of that level of honesty right there. So good for you, Mike. I mean, you can do it for yourself, but then you just share it and everybody else gets the benefit from it. So that's awesome. Good for you. Yeah. I'll tell you, the things I look back in the business that I built, obviously with many others, but I started. So the folks that we built together, and man, I look back at all the things I missed along the way, and the things that would have given me the growth, and in many cases, I'll tell you the energy. I look back after we sold it after about 17 years, and I started reflecting years afterwards how many people were there for so many years, and there was a lot of them that were there from the beginning to the end, and how much they benefited as far as their personal growth, their growth in career and skill levels. They bought houses, raised families, and I never plugged into any of that at the time. And what a huge missed opportunity plugging into that. That could have energized me, clarified
Mm,
things for me, helped them be, even better for themselves. It was just a monster miss. I try not to dwell on it too long because I know I won't do it again because I learned from it.
yeah.
But a monster miss by missing the roses along the way as I was grinding my guts out for all those years.
Do you like the word grind?
I don't. I guess I like using it to describe something, but no, I don't. I don't think it's the way that I don't think it's the way to live. If that's what you mean.
Yeah, so that was the question. I hear a lot of guys now say, "Well, I'm grinding my side hustle or this business. I'm just grinding away." And I had this conversation with my wife yesterday. I'm like, that word it doesn't sound fun to me. Like, and she's like, "No, I just prefer the word flow. Like, I like to get in the flow of things and just flow with it." I'm like, I like that way better. Like, because this grinding sounds hard. I think that we should do hard things in life to get us better, but also to say on a daily basis, I'm just grinding away. I'm like, I don't want any part of that. I'd rather be in the flow and just moving along, enjoying life and still doing hard things. Like I enjoy putting my body through hard things, working out, stuff like that. But, or learning something new, those are hard things, but I'm not going to grind away at it. You know what I
Well,
mean?
you might appreciate this then. I got a chance multiple times to work with Bob Rotella, who's a very famous sports psychologist, and primarily, or not primarily, but works also a lot with professional golfers. That's how I got to be around him multiple times. And I remember many years ago, he spoke about the word grind. And he said, boy, that is just not the way it works for elite athletes. It just doesn't. There's you do want the flow. You do want that energy. You do want to just kind of get into that zone. You don't get into the zone by grinding. Kind of was his
Yeah.
point. And so yeah, your experiences, mine, and the professionalism of Bob Rotella
That's cool.
I would say that's a fair amount to go by right there.
Yeah, for sure. Now, with this book that you've written and stuff like that, how important, in your opinion, is having, and you've already answered this, but like, so having structure in your life, do you now have a routine? Like, do you have a morning routine or an evening routine stuff that you do every single day that helps you stay structured in your life?
Only on my good days, Mike. Yeah, I absolutely do, and I would say like goals, it'll fluctuate a little bit, but it's I try to be up and out and ready to go by 6 a.m. I make the bed with my wife, or if she's already gone, we make the bed.
I love that. I love that you make your bed together. I
Yeah,
think that's awesome.
yeah. Unless I'm still in it or she's still in it, but other than that, we
Yeah.
make it together. But we're normally up about the same time. Brush my teeth, wash my face. I drink a large amount of water in the morning. I think that's a huge piece. I meditate 20 minutes. I did transcendental meditation training about a year and a half ago now. That's been a big deal to understand that.
Awesome.
I journal inconsistently, which I hate saying out loud, but it is inconsistent. But it's awesome, and it bums me out that I don't do it more. Um, Eat my oatmeal and healthy stuff in the morning. I'm 61, so I try to pay attention to all that, stay in shape and all that kind of thing. And I read a really cool book that you might be aware of. I don't know if you ever follow the Stoics, but the Daily Stoic. And I've got it in front of me right here by Ryan Holiday, and I've read several of his things. And I think I shared a couple with you a while ago, Mike. Ego is the enemy. Stillness is the key. Some of those, they're awesome. And like any book, you're going to find things in there that kind of go, well, I don't know about that. Well, I'm not saying the guy's right 100% of the time, but he makes me think almost 100% of the time. That's why I read his stuff.
For sure. And yeah, I love Stillness is the Key was my favorite one, but also I know a lot of people around here really like Obstacles the Way as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stillness is the Key. I love that book. But I think that, like you said, and so another thing I was thinking about while you're mentioning that is that, like I said, I don't like the word grind, but when I look at my so every single day, I don't know where it went now, but I have, my habit journal that I do every single morning. And this stuff, it isn't a grind, but like success is found in the small details, I feel like. Whether it's success or you're growing or you're dying, but so I'll just a few of these. So I wake up at 5:15. I have two accountability partners that we message every morning. I do a devotional. I have a journal for my wife that I write in. I do some breath work, take a cold shower, and I have, so you might like this, but I do affirmations, but I have recorded my own voice in them. So I put my earpods and I listen to my own affirmations, my own voice talking. But some guy told me last night.
Is that the definition of holding yourself accountable? I think I like that.
Exactly. But I had a guy last night say, I'm like, I just want you, and he's like, I'm not being disrespectful here, but I want you to know that you talk about some of this stuff and you sound like such a goofball. Like people in the Midwest, we don't act like that. Like that's not, and I'm like, but I don't want to be like everybody else. My goal is not to fit in or be a conforming to the society around me. I want to be different. I want to help other men realize that we can change. Like you don't have to live like this. Like I said, this stuff, is there days where I don't want to do this stuff? Do I want to take a cold shower every day? No, but I know it's gonna help me and help me to be better as a person and help my health and stuff like that. So that's part of my grind, I guess, but it's not necessarily a grind. It's just doing those little things are hard. I don't want to do every day, but I know it's taking me where I want to go in the future. That makes sense.
Wouldn't you agree, though, after you do it for a while? I don't know how long you've been doing it, but I find after I do it for a while, I look forward to it. Even the things that seem tedious, I can't wait to read that. It's just it takes me certainly less than 5 minutes, 3 minutes to read the Daily Stoic, just the one pager in there, because basically it's a different page every day of the year. Yep. It was just kind of fun, flipped it over, and then started again this year. And then
that's cool.
because you've seen different things, hopefully you've grown, you've experienced, if nothing else. Rereading all that stuff, you have a different perspective. So it's going to mean something different to you across the board. I want to touch on something you said, though, because I actually have a habit of testing this out. Every time I meet somebody that either initially or have heard enough good things about to where they've had a level of success, particularly in their business, in the business world, I ask them, what's the key that they found, or how, actually, I ask a couple, but the way I asked this piece that you were referencing, I said, how important are the little idiosyncrasies of your career, of what you do in your job, in your business? And every one of them, if there's even any little pause at all, because it's kind of question might come out of nowhere, says the same thing. It's not only key, it's the difference maker. So when you mention that, that's why I think it's so hard to see a business and say, okay, I'm going to go do that business because I'm a successful lawyer. I can do this. I'm a successful doctor. I can do this. So I've done this business before, so I know I can do this one. Man, until you really get into that particular business and learn the idiosyncrasies, and I'm not suggesting you shouldn't do it. I'm just suggesting realize that just because you were good at this thing doesn't mean you're going to be good at this thing, and especially if you don't have the right attitude. And remember that the reason you're good at this thing is because there's a million little things you learned to tie together to make it, to put that structure together and make things flow. And it's just interesting to me. I literally, maybe I've asked 40, 50 people that over the years, and it literally never had anybody say anything but that. They don't say, oh, it was a great product, or, oh, I'm so smart. You just never hear that.
Yeah. And yeah, I think it's so true. It's just doing those little things day in and day out. Like I said, I don't want to do them every single day, but someone like you said, I look forward to them. The cold shower, I don't necessarily look forward to, but like even with my wife's journal, it's a kind of a husband and wife journal, but every day you flip it over, it's something new. And it's a 3-year journal. So you can, every year, you see what you did a couple years before. So it's kind of interesting to see, because we're growing, we're maturing, our relationship's getting better every year. So it's just neat to see how it's growing. Another question I wanted to ask you. So if you could go into the school system currently and
don't let me in there.
I want to hear this and put any sort of curriculum in there. What do you think kids nowadays should be learning, whether it's, at a young age or high school? Like, what do you think we should be teaching children from an early age?
I think the same thing that's absolutely kicking their butt when they get out of school. And that's understanding their finances, their numbers, how to buy, how to rent, how to lease, how to buy groceries, what's involved in having a family financially if they want to. I've got a bit of a saying, money only matters if you don't have any.
Oh, yes.
And it's absolutely, I find, just absolutely true. When I talk to kids that, especially kids now, you'll hear all this thing, well, I want to give to charity. I want to give to this. I want to do this. Hey, I think that's all awesome. But when I ask them, do you know what it takes? Gosh, Mike, I've talked in front of over 2,200 of these CEO kids in the program that I'm involved with through the years. And every time I've asked, please raise your hands if you know the family budget, how much money comes in, and more or less how it goes out. 2,200 kids. How many think have raised their hands on that question? Less than 10.
No kidding.
Less than 10. It's kind of funny, but it's mostly really sad. And then you sit there and say, why is the government trying to right now say we should get rid of all the school debt for all these kids? What about all the debt people are going into? What about the stress? What about the divorces? And to me, it all stems from back to those little tiny idiosyncrasies, taking care of business things that they don't really know the numbers. And man, it's so easy in many ways. Turn on Dave Ramsey or just go Google Dave Ramsey. You're going to learn just about as much as you're going to need to kind of at least get by financially. You don't even have to pay for anything to kind of benefit from him and his radio show. So I would say it would be the blocking and tackling of life that I wish that they would be teaching. In the CEO program that I'm involved with, there is a fair amount of that. There's a lot of shaking hands. It's business related for sure, but having conversations, looking people in the eye, planning a little bit, having goals and things like that. So, and the other thing that I would teach for sure, because the information's out there and it's everywhere and none of us know it. Most powerful machine on the face of the earth, right here. We don't know how it works, how to use it, or how to maintain it.
Yes.
Wow. If there's a wow in the world, now we all want a faster car, a bigger house, a better this, a better that, but here we got it already. This thing, it doesn't cost us anything and we don't know how to use it. But you're more than tipping on it, because when you talk about structure, this thing works better with structure. This thing is dependent on targets, but reticular activating system,
Yes.
teleological, and gestalt is all capable. That's how our minds work, but it's all target dependent. So if we're not picking a target, we're not building a structure of sort to support our effort and our journey to that target, this thing isn't going to do a fraction of what it could do. By the way, it's free and it works 24/7 if we understand it.
Yes. And
99.9% of us don't. And by the way, the information's out there. It's free and we don't even look it up.
it's all over YouTube. And I don't know a lot about the brain, but my wife and I are talking the other day, and she's like, the thing is with our brain, like our brain wants to keep us safe. Like
Yep.
if we're addicted to anything, if we have bad habits, like, yeah, it always wants to take us back to those because it's natural. It keeps us safe. It keeps us happy, if you will. But with all this neuroscience, and like you said, this information's everywhere. But our brain's also like a big piece of mold that we can mold it and shape it, and we can change it. We don't have to be. This guy I was speaking with last night, he said, Mike, the thing is that I known you whenever you were, we'll say party Mike, like when you were out just partying, having a good time. And he's like, but you're not the same person anymore. Like, I just don't understand what flip did you switch? I'm like, but it wasn't a switch. There's no flipping of switches. It was doing these small things every single day that's taken me now. I'm 18, 20 months into this process. That's where I'm getting to. I'm molding this to be completely different than what it was. It's not easy. Whenever you want change, like you said, we talked earlier about you have to say that poem. If you want change, you have to. You can pick change or you can pick change. Something like that. What was you said? But
oh, you mean oh yeah, divorce is hard, marriage is hard. Pick your hard. Partying and drinking is hard. Or getting drunk, getting in trouble is hard, and being sober is hard. Pick your hard. So we have those choices in life, but it's interesting what you said a second ago. You used to be that party Mike or whatever the case is. Well, I think there's a time in hopefully all of our lives where we sit there and say, is this what I want?
yes.
Is this what lines up with what matters to me? And by the way, Amy and I in our efforts have kind of deviated from mission, purpose, the why to what matters. And we found it to be a better starting point, if you will, to be able to mold and identify and clarify that mission, vision, value stuff. And it's kind of around that what matters. So at some point, if there's something else in the back, some little thing in the back of your head, some little guy saying, hey, this partying stuff's fun, but man, this isn't doing it for me anymore for whatever reason. Even if you don't know why, listen to that and go, okay, is there something else out there? That's that first sense of awareness. That's that first breath of air of awareness to come in and say, you know what, maybe there's something else out there. And then all of a sudden the big question is, do you have the courage to spend some time and look into it? Most don't, but you have. I like to think I do. And I go back and forth. I slip back and forth. But overall, I feel like I kind of keep on moving there. And then what I find for myself is once I do, that hard part gets easier because I'm like, gosh, the last 10 hard things I did all turned out really good.
Yeah.
Maybe the 11th one will too. And then my confidence grows. And so that's why we call it building momentum. And Momentum Builder is the name of my business. Is because of that. The more we do that and we know where we're at through awareness, what we're after, as clear as we can do, as we see ourselves moving along that path, our confidence grows, our trust in ourselves and others grow, both super important.
Yes.
Our energy grows, our motivation to keep going grows because we see ourselves moving towards that goal. But if we don't have a goal, we can't see ourselves moving towards it. So we got to have that darn thing. Back to that, this thing needs a target. Yes. And keep on moving. And then all of a sudden, the net of it is we build momentum. So things that used to be big boulders, I'm looking at these huge boulders right now in southern or in Scottsdale, Arizona. And there's those huge boulders that were so hard to get over in the past. There are bumps in the road now. There'll be big boulders also in the future, but the ones that used to be big are bumps. And now I'm going after bigger things, as are you and other folks that are in this mindset.
That's awesome. So one question, you made a simple statement that said most won't.
Yeah.
Why? And that's a sad reality of it. Out of 100 people, 99 probably won't. what's one piece of advice you can have to say to go ahead and go for it? Like, do you have is there, I know there's not a switch, but is there something we can do? Because I think a lot of us guys say, well, why, I can't do that. We just have that negative mindset all the time. It's just like that negative subconscious, the negative self-talk that's always running through the back of your head. How can you change it? Like, you can. Because I feel like
Well, I think one way to challenge yourself with it is to realize that you're making a choice that you can't.
Yeah.
If you choose that you can't, you can't.
What is it? Is it Henry Ford that said that? Whether you say you can or you can't, you're right.
Yep. There you go. So there's a lot of those beautiful, truths in life of those old quotes and stuff like that. Whether it comes from Henry Ford or Confucius or Ben Franklin or whatever. There's the reason those things keep cropping up through the years is because human beings, we all kind of run into the same type of thing. So, and I think what's the thing you said, how can people get away with it? Well, first of all, realize that if you're going to just say, I can't, you're right, you can't. But if you sit there and say, maybe you want to try, take one step in that direction. Just take one.
That's such a great point. One little baby step is all it takes.
And then just take another one.
Yeah, don't try to take 100 the first day. Just try to do one, then do two.
Any day, Mike. How many days do you take 100? Even when you're rolling, how many days do you take 100? The only reason my steps some days are easier than other days is because I have momentum. That's not saying that I gained 15 miles that day. I don't think I ever gained more than about a proverbial step a day.
Yeah. Yep. And that makes so much sense. That's what a guy asked me the other day, and I said, when I very first started this, a guy said, I want to get in shape. What do you recommend? I say, tomorrow morning, just wake up and do 10 push-ups. He's like, that's it? I'm like, just do 10. He's like, I want to do 100. I was like, no, just do 10. And so he texted me. He's like, I did 100. What do you think about that? And I'm like, here we go. And so he texted me next day. I'm so sore, I can't even get out of bed. Like, he couldn't even move his arms. I'm like, there we go. I told you not to do 100. I said do 10. But like you said, just one step. I'm not going to go to the gym and get a 6-pack of abs tomorrow. It's doing these small little things over the time that will get the results that we want. I think, like you said, once you start building that momentum, you may never see it on a surface level, but you can look back a year from now and be like, whoa, I've made some big changes in my life. What's that saying? Like, we underestimate what we can do, or we overestimate what we can do in a year, but we underestimate what we can do in like 3 to 5 years or something like that. But, so John, I really appreciate you taking the time. One last question, if you have, besides this one, if you could recommend any book or a podcast even for us guys to listen to, like, what do you recommend?
Well, I think I knew you were going to ask that question. I think a life book. It's long, and that's okay because let it take a long time. But Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand.
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Hugely read by CEOs, etc., around the world. I think it was written in 56, 59, something like that. Yeah. It's phenomenal. But it's 1,200 pages. But it's life. It's life right there, and awesome. And I did want to share a book in business if you're really interested in business, as far as from being leadership and what leadership takes. It's called Scaling Leadership. It's a little bit wonky, but skip all the wonky number stuff and just read it, and it's a pretty easy read. And then if you want my best read of all time in life is Jonathan Livingston Seagull. It won't take you 2 hours to read it. And every time you read it once a year for 5 years, it will mean completely different things to you every year. No kidding. Who was the author on that?
I think it's Bach, B-A-C-H, I believe. Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I think there's you can get it on Amazon for sure. I just bought 30 or 40 of them for people.
Awesome.
I think they're all of $6 to $10 or something. It's pretty easy, little paperback.
That's awesome. Good deal. Well, John, I so appreciate you taking the time. I mean, I hope everybody takes notes and listen to this, because I know that I was over here jotting down notes the whole time. Like, I just can't thank you enough, and I think that this plays right into everything that we're talking about in this group. And I just can't thank you enough, John. I appreciate it.
Well, you're doing good work. Congratulations. I'm excited to see your excitement and your clarity. And I think you're offering an awful lot of yourself, which is pretty damn nice, Mike. So good luck to you and your whole group.
Awesome. Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
You bet. Have a great day.